Hello, everyone. Welcome to Evolve and Execute. I'm your host, CS Rajiv Bajaj, startup coach, mentor, and your companion to exploring how conscious leadership transform execution into excellence. Today's episode touches the soul of business, ethics, and governance. In an age where shortcuts are glorified and integrity often negotiable, we ask what truly keeps an organization upright when everything else is shaking. To decode this, we have uh, been joined by someone who lives his principles every single day, Mr. Abhijit Sanzgiri, a leader whose mantra is simple yet profound: work purely for joy, let compensation be incidental, and stay relevant by being of use to one and all. He is not just a governance expert, but a torchbearer of ethical leadership, reminding us that doing good work isn't about rewards, it's about resonance. Abhijit ji, it's an honor to have you on Evolve and Execute. Welcome to the show.
Thank
Uh,
you. It's my pleasure and privilege to.
would you like to quickly introduce yourself to our audience, sir?
So, fine, I think you can go on. I'm just a chartered accountant in practice, also a law graduate. Enjoy what I do and always want to keep on learning new things, experimenting to evolve and maybe stay relevant so that I could be of help, use, and support to whoever is open to
That's
knowledge sharing. Right?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Abhijit ji, your philosophy about working for joy and being of use is beautifully, very distinct and rare. How does this mindset evolve for you, and how does it tie into ethical leadership?
So, as a chartered accountant, our basic philosophy or our basic ethos of working is pride of service before personal gain. So the code of ethics itself enshrines that. Now, whether a professional truly swears by what is ideally his Bhagavad Gita or the Bible or the Quran, whatever you call it, and works towards that basic philosophy, I think is for everyone to take. But that's the cornerstone. So our motto song also says a chartered accountant is someone who is awake when everyone is sleeping, in the sense that he's the one who certifies the truth and fairness of the financial statement. So irrespective of whoever has done what, he's always the watchdog, the savior, the trusteeship of the financial information, and he's supposed to do his duties impartially, objectively, transparently, keeping client confidentiality with competency and credibility, and also with a professional attitude and behavior, which brings pride to the profession. So it's completely enshrined in our philosophy of the institute. That's one. The secondly, I've seen my father-in-law, both of whom were professionals, were working with absolute integrity. In case of my father, it was sheer hard work. He used to really enjoy what he was doing. For him, the philosophy was work is worship. And even in case of my father-in-law, I was completely working with integrity, and it was his philosophy of that you will be respected as a professional only if you are useful. So the moment you lose that usefulness, I think the respect goes. And
Yeah,
usefulness will only come from being relevant. And if being relevant is means that you stay updated with all knowledge, all information, and not just have the knowledge, put it to use for benefit of somebody who really needs it. And it's not guided by that I get the money. It's the pride that you have in serving. The professional gain obviously will come because money, I believe, is always a byproduct of great exceptional service.
fantastic, fantastic. That's a very, very powerful thought and very powerful statement. I understand the code of conduct and ethics are the at the core of for any profession. But how many of us follow that? That's a very big question. So, ethics often becomes a checklist sometimes to comply with rather than embody. What's the real difference between compliance and consciousness?
So when you consider compliance as a checklist, it just becomes a tick box. You just do it because you are restricted by certain rules and regulations. So there are boundaries which are set up. So it's something which is forbidding you from doing something. You would ideally wish to be non-compliant and do certain acts, but because of the fact that there is a penalty or there is a fine and which would harm you, you don't do it. Whereas if you have a culture of ethics, then it's not obedience. You do it naturally. You do it as your core value, as a principle. It's not conduct anymore, which is out of fear. It's a conscious choice. It's your conscience which makes you do something. So ethics is it's all about doing things right when no one is watching you. It's being just aligned with your inner core values so that you add value.
Perfect, perfect. So you have worked across risk and governance frameworks. What do you think organizations misunderstand most about governance?
So governance is basically the structure or framework by which organizations are managed. And when organizations look at governance, they just look at creating structures which will perform or which will implement or which will execute as per a given structure which is there, which is in black and white. But in today's world, you just can't have a one size fit all structure. You need flexibility, you need adaptability, you need empowerment to people, you need certain flexibility, and you can't be rigid. So one is it's not a rigid structure that will stand out. The second is a culture you create of, as I said, an ethical culture where the norm should be ethical profitability. It's not profitability at any cost. It's how you do it effectively and efficiently, even with all obligations to all stakeholders concerned. That matters, and your employees are your key stakeholders first. So how you respect, how you acknowledge, how you reward, and how you empower those employees becomes key. So I use a simple acronym. It's rare. The respect, the acknowledgement or the appreciation, the rewards, and the empowerment all linked together is really rare, and that's where organizations lack. They don't put their employees first. They put their profits first, profits at any cost. At times, even compliance can take a backseat if it's hindering profitability. I think that's the root cause, which is a short-term gain over a long-term sustainable success is what is the issue.
Right, very well said, sir. When leaders chase growth at all cost, governance is often seen as friction. How can we shift that perception from friction to foundation?
So governance can't be a friction. Governance can be a friction only when we look at the structure which is created as something which stifles innovation, which stifles creativity, which stifles create critical thinking. If we look at the structure as something which is a strong foundation. So for if you take any building, it needs a very strong foundation. So if you have created a foundation which is based on inclusivity, which is based on fairness, which is based on equality, which is based on transparency, which is based on competency, credibility, transparency, then obviously you are not creating that fiction, but it's a strong foundation on which only you can evolve, and that evolution will take time. But yes, it's basically you create a culture of connection where there is cooperation, and that cooperation leads to collaboration. It's not competition between the resources. It's the resources are complementing each other to cooperate, to connect, to collaborate. So jointly you can co-create and co-elevate each other. So it's all about the C's working in tandem to create that foundation on which only growth can happen, and that too on a sustained basis. And the basis for that has to be a strong ethical governance. I think that's the key issue. I think most of the organizations which have failed, there is an underlying bad governance which is at the root. So the regulators also are now looking at governance at the core. So they would give a lot of importance to how organizations are governed as a basic checklist even of theirs.
Perfect, sir. Very, very a thoughtful message for our viewers. How do you personally define ethics in moments when the right choice isn't obvious? Uh, how do you look at it?
So go with the flow. Go with your heart. Go. Your purpose should be very clear. What is the why you are doing certain things? You got to be very clear. So ethics is something like it's for. I put ethics also in another acronym. Ethics is for everyone. The T is the trust, which is absolutely non-negotiable. H is honesty will always be the best policy, and integrity, the I is always non-negotiable, and the C is the courage to stand up, to speak up for your rights, to call a spade if there is something which is going wrong, and S is be sincere in whatever you're doing. So it's all about that acronym ethics. And if you are basically living by your values aligned with the core principles of the organization, then there's nothing called a conflict of interest. It's there could be an ethical dilemma, and we've seen this right from the Mahabharata times when Arjun had that dilemma that he was fighting. So the responsibility, the dharma or the karma which is there has been imbibed on Indian culture since long. So you do what's right. I think you at times when it's a you got to do for the larger good. So obviously, if you have to cut a foot to save a life, or maybe you got to retrench certain people to maybe save the whole organization from going bust. I think there are some decisions which have to be taken, and if they are taken with the right intent, they are communicated transparently. I think then that there has to be no ethical dilemma or conflict of interest. And organizations generally have the FAQs of conflict resolution and ethical dilemmas all written down in black and white to the extent possible. So the employee is also guided on what's the right way, a correct way of complying with certain things.
That's right. That's right, sir. You often speak about staying relevant by being useful. In governance terms, what does being of use means to an organization or its people?
So governance is the basic structure by which the organization is managed, and that structure, an organization serves a concept of being of service to all stakeholders, and there could be varied stakeholders in an organization, right from the employees to the regulators to the shareholders to the investors to the lenders to the ones who supplied the goods or received goods, so the debtors, creditors, there's and the society at large. So one has to comprehensively integrate all the stakeholder interests when it comes to managing. Now, the governance has to be all inclusive. It has to create a culture. It has to create the foundation, as we talked about, when one can only evolve and grow. It can't deter or it can't create limitations where you just do a tick box or you just do certain things because there is a binding or a law. So that would stifle your creativity or critical thinking. So while there are rules, procedures, policies made. They're just a very broad framework on guidance on what you generally do, but there is a flexibility which is given within the boundaries in which you operate. So governance has to follow that.
Very powerful thoughts. Is there such a thing like over governance where controls stifles creativity? How can leaders balance integrity and innovation both?
So one is there's nothing called under control and over control and balance, because everything is subjective. The question is, if you have a culture of pure integrity, and that integrity which is non-negotiable, and that integrity is something which you do what's right, and within that overarching framework, innovation will always be there. So integrity can't be at the cost of innovation, or integrity isn't the enemy of innovation. Integrity is just a value which you have, and that will obviously aid or enhance innovation wherever it has to do. If you innovate something and you just don't have integrity behind it, then whatever you've done, maybe no one will even buy out of that. So when there is no trust, there is no rapport, there's no connect. I think whatever you have innovated is for whom? I think
Yeah,
the integrity which is there as an underlying philosophy will empower everything and anything in any organization.
I'm sure this is guide our a lot of startup founders who are part of our journey. So another very important aspect, sir, can ethics and governance be taught, or they are cultivated only through experience and reflections and evolve in the culture of the organization?
So everything can be taught. So ethics and governance can always be a part of our textbooks right from the early days. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
one is aware of what is ethics, what is good governance, how organizations are governed. We can set examples of people from whom we can get inspired, influenced, motivated, so we can transform our lives, maybe even transcend our thoughts and beliefs. So while it can be taught, a lot of things which are taught are actually, and which are preached for that matter, may not be followed. So one only has to experience, imbibe them, and it's all about reflection. It's all about looking inwards and looking at my value systems and how these value systems could work to add value. So while there is a lot which can be talked over, I think it needs to be imbibed by each one individually, because you have the greed which is there, the pressure which is there, always, which will wean people away from being ethical. So you have the challenges at all times. So how do you stand firm by your values, even if there are external pressures and challenges to the contrary, is what it's all about. And it'll all be coming with wisdom. It'll all be coming with maturity. It's all coming with the realization that finally, if you are ethical, you have a clean heart, you have a great conscience, and you can sleep well at night knowing that you did things right, so there's nothing to worry. So it's your intent behind what you do. So in Latin, there is a term called mens rea, which is a guilty mind. So when they look at a criminal activity, they look at the intent. What's the mens rea behind doing certain things? And if your intent is right, that's what is the purpose. So for any organization, what's the purpose for which the organization is created? And obviously, it's to make ethical profits and to be of service to humanity. And if that's the goal, I think the trust which comes along with their innovation and whatever they create would be lapped up by the public, who are consumers, because there is also an element of trust. And finally, it's all about the human to human connect which sells. It's not a B2B, B2C. It's ideally an H to H, which will finally sell at the end of the day.
Perfect, sir. So, I think for young professionals entering corporate life, what would you tell them about integrity, not as an ideal, but as a practical career advantage?
So integrity is the rock stone on which all other values could be built. So you basically you hire people for attitude, and that attitude, one of the key elements what one would take a person will be for integrity is always doing things right. And if you are always doing things right, I think all other skills can be taught. Integrity is something which is either there or it's not there. So a person with integrity would always succeed if it given the right guidance at all times. So for all young professionals, especially the chartered accountants, and just about 10 minutes back, we had a felicitation of professionals who had cleared the chartered accountant exams in our organization, and that was what I told them, that this is the start of your profession. So one thing you need to remember, that at all times it's the pride of service before personal gain, and our profession ethics which is there, which talks of integrity as a core principle and a value. I think that's something which should be worn up the sleeve. So people would remember you, people would do business with you, people will hire you, people would recommend you, people would promote you only because of this quality mainly, which is integrity. All other things, it's over a period of time, everybody would acquire them with maybe whatever tools. And with AI coming in, knowledge is just at a prompt of
Yeah,
a thought which you present. So it's not in the knowing it. The gap will now be in the doing, and how
yeah.
you execute those things effectively and efficiently. And with, if you have integrity, which is not just what you do, but it's how others also perceive you to be a person of integrity. I think that's what would work for you.
That's very powerful statement, and I'm sure our young listeners will gain a lot of it. If we zoom out, what do ethics and governance mean for the future of humanity, not just business?
So the future is completely, you have to be an ethical society, because people will do business with people they trust. They will do business with people on whom they have a great rapport. They have a great understanding. They know they will not be fleeced. They will not be cheated. If they've taken X, they'll take that X. So if it's an Y price you're paying, that's the right price which is there. So when you get a service, you know you are getting a quality service, and people won't mind paying for that quality, for that value, if it's something which is sustainable, which is consistent, and which is coming by a product, which is coming from a firm which is trustworthy. So integrity is the main core brand value of any professional, or it would be of any uh, product or service or an organization. And it's not just integrity alone. Your integrity will have to be blended into your competency, so that you get the credibility, and then maybe you can get the positioning, you can get the visibility, which will only add on. But at the core, if you can't be trusted, then whatever you do, I think you'll always be out of trust. And once the reputation is lost, it's very difficult to regain it.
Yep, yep. That's indeed very insightful. Let's move on to our rapid fire round, where I'll be
Sure.
asking you one pointed question and maybe
Yeah.
one liner or
Yeah.
state answers to that. So, this is going to be a ethical lightning round, spontaneous
Sure.
and straight from heart.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
ethics, rule book, or rhythm?
Rhythm.
Great. Governance, structure, or soul?
Soul. The soul will
One,
always give a structure.
yeah, absolutely. I agree. One ethical dilemma you'll never forget.
So, in one organization where I was a part of, they had and it not one organization, many organizations, there was something which was not disclosed transparently in the manner in which it had to be. So in our capacity as auditors, we've said that either we would disclaim or we would just leave the assignment at certain points of time. When we have been asked to pitch for an assignment, we have been given issues that you don't qualify or something. So we've always stayed away. So ideally, it's not a dilemma. It's a clear moral principle that we share. So even if there is a financial loss over the long run, our integrity, when people back us or they come to us, they know that it's a firm or it's he's a professional with integrity. So a rightful due which is there will always come. So no ethical dilemma as such which was the hardest, because one is when your principle is very clear. I think everything will be very clear, and either you do this or you don't do this. It's clearly in black and white.
Yeah, yeah. So, a leader who defined integrity for you.
So various leaders, but the first which will come to my mind would be Abdul Kalam recently, or Mahatma Gandhi also.
Fantastic. I also am a big fan of Dr. Abdul Kalam. Risk, fear, or foresight?
Foresight, obviously.
If
With foresight,
corruption,
if you can anticipate what can come in, then there'll be no fear.
absolutely, I agree. If corruption had a voice, what would it say?
So it will say is no one can find it out. Just do it.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
yeah, the second is also that I'm justified in doing this. It's my right. Everyone does
yeah,
it.
absolutely, absolutely. So you that way you would try and justify this, but ultimately, this is not something which is accepted.
Yeah,
The
it's
hardest ethic,
acceptable. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. The hardest ethical choice you have had to make.
So there's no hard ethical choice I've had to make, because I've been very clear on what ethics is. And once you're clear, you know either this is to be done or this is not to be done. So there have been cases where there have been pressures to not be transparent. But yes, you know what your duties are. And if you're very clear on what your duties are, what your dharma is, then obviously you'll do your karma. So nothing has been that hard. There have been various cases which have challenged us over time, but nothing is where that could be something which could be very disturbing.
Great, sir. Um, a quote you live by.
So I always quote that whenever there is a risk, you need to de-risk, and every risk can be de-risked. So I always say be so good that it's impossible to fail, but the good is always the enemy of the great. So always be great at whatever you do, and again, why just be great? Be the best at
Yeah,
whatever you do, and then keep on evolving. That the best keeps on getting better and better.
absolutely. I'm sure our listeners are listening very carefully, and these are very powerful words. Please mark them. So, a joy or success, what lasts longer?
So joy would obviously last longer, because success, when the appreciation, the applause, or the recognition fades over time, then you will need to look for another success. But if you are having joy, which is more of an inner trait, then that joy can be sustainable.
Yeah, fantastic thoughts, sir. Governance in one word.
Consciousness.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you. Abhijit, this conversation reminds us that ethics isn't about restriction, it's about alignment. Governance isn't about control, it's about consciousness. And when you work for joy and service, as you say, compensation stops being currency and it becomes a contribution. So, to all our listeners, remember true leadership isn't tested in prosperity, but in principle, governance give you ambition and direction, and ethics give it dignity. So, let's learn from our talk today with Abhijit ji. One last word for our listeners, sir.
So one is my father always used to give me an example of Mr. Chintaman Dwarkanath Deshmukh. And Chintaman Dwarkanath Deshmukh was our first Indian governor of the Reserve Bank of India, and he was also a finance minister. He was the one who had cleared his Indian civil services examination in London, which used to be held at that time with the highest marks. And he was someone, and I've been always quoted that by my father for my exams, is that when there were multiple choice questions of which were told that you, out of let's say 100, you attempt any 60 or 70, he used to attempt all the 100 questions, and instead of uh, attempting a few of those, he used to always say correct any of those. So the attitude was something of being completely prepared and fully confident in what you're doing. So one is, if you have, I would say, the right attitude, the belief, the courage, the discipline, and the eagerness, the energy and the enthusiasm and the focus to do anything, then success will always be yours. So if you do things with integrity, add your competency, then things are bound to happen your way. Money will always be a byproduct, and yes, people know the worth of your service. So, and if you are good, people lose you. You don't lose people. So that's something I swear by. If you're good, people lose you. You don't lose people. So keep on
Oh,
doing your good
fantastic.
always. Yeah.
Fantastic. If you are good, people lose you rather than you losing them. So your attitude determines your altitude. So I think, sir, with those powerful words, we end our today's discussion, and I'm sure this uh, podcast is going to be considered excellent by all the entrepreneurs as well as professionals who are following us. Thank you so much, sir, for your
Thank
time
you.
and. Until next time, keep evolving, keep executing, keep leading with consciousness. And this is Rajiv Bajaj signing off from Evolve and Execute. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.